straight cut solutions right here, right now. Do you cut plywood, MDF, or any sheet good, any jumbo piece of wood, and you need a straight line? Stop fumbling the cut. We're gonna show you how to do it perfect every time.
Other professional saw guides can cost between $500 and $1,000. Our saw guide is more durable, easier to set up, designed for the DIYer, and contractor approved. Don't wander your cut, save your expensive sheet goods, and start precision cutting now. Our saw guide is lightweight, designed to be tossed in the truck without worry of bending or flexing. We'd love to get your feedback on our straight cut saw guide. Take advantage of this amazing introductory price. Every DIYer has to have this tool.
One of the largest challenges in do-it-yourself construction-based work is getting a piece of plywood through a table saw safely. Stop doing it. It's extremely dangerous. You're not set up for that. You're going to use a saw guide. You're going to be able to do this in your driveway like a pro, and you'll probably get better results. If you've seen our slab jig that we designed to make wood slabs flat, you know the quality of our American-made tools. We don't skimp on the quality. These are tough tools. You will not be disappointed. Don't fall for the big box tricks. Their saw guides are short. They're weak. They don't lock in the saw. You won't be happy. Lock that saw in to get true safe cuts every time. Let's go over your saw guide tool checklist. You don't need much. Let's get started. How do we set up the plywood for our saw guide? First, we cut a 9-inch strip. That's going to give us plenty of meat to sacrifice when we go to do our initial cut to make it nice and true. You gotta start with the factory edge. Factory edge is what you'll measure off of, and then you'll just do a rough cut with whatever saw you have available. In this case, I use the same saw that I'm gonna set up my saw guide base to. I measured 9 inches, I cut that off, and it's time to bring it to the table saw. Once you bring your piece of plywood to the table saw, you're gonna set up your kerf. What does that mean? I'm going to adjust my saw to about 3/16 to a 1/4 inch high. You just want to make sure the dimple on the bottom of your saw guide will actually snap nice and tight into that groove. Now the groove is key. That's why we get perfectly straight cuts, because as good as your fence is on your table saw will be as perfect as that cut is every single time. When you get your distance for where you're gonna clamp, your sacrificial clamping area, you want about 2 inches of meat there. So when I set this to the fence of my table saw, just start at 2 inches. That gives you plenty of area to add your vise clamps to. Now what I did is I have a thin blade, so I needed to run one cut. I adjusted that saw over just a hair, and then my track was plenty wide enough for that aluminum to snap right into and screw down. Our screw placement is simple. I'm going 1.5 inches from each end and then 12 inches on center all the way down the saw guide. So you use 5 screws per length. So that's 10 screws for an 8-footer, 5 screws for a 4-footer. Make sure you pre-drill. What I've done is I've pre-drilled through all of my aluminum. That way my screws go through without a problem. I'm just using a drill bit slightly larger than my 3/4 inch wood screws. I recommend 11/64 on this drill bit so that you pre-drill through that aluminum for your wood screws. When assembling your saw guide base, just choose your holes. All you need is 4 holes to grab this base to hold it nice and snug to any saw. When laying out the placements of where you're gonna drill through your saw to attach the base to your saw, you wanna make sure it's actually in the track. Just simply jam it to the front, jam it to the saw guide, lay out your holes, pre-drill, and go.
Hey, pro tip. On this step, you don't want to drill all the way through the base yet. Just simply mark your holes, then pull the base out of the guide, put it on a different table, and then drill through those holes. This way, you don't mess up your plywood.
You see, that's the beauty, and that's why the do-it-yourselfers, the professionals, and the contractors are gonna save thousands on your saw guide. It works with any saw, so just pick your points of placement. Boy, say that 5 times fast. Just pick your points of placement and find that spot where it's gonna suck that saw guide base right to your saw. drill bit that I'm using to go through the base of my saw is 17/64. I only want it slightly larger than my machined screw. So that drill bit worked perfectly going right through the base of my saw. You're gonna use 1/4 inch 20 by 1 inch tall machined screws with 1/4 20 nylon lock nuts. That makes sure that you don't get any wiggling happening as you're cutting through hundreds of sheet goods. The countersink comes into play to make sure that the screw heads are low in this nylon base. The nylon runs so smooth over any substrate, and we just want to countersink the heads of those machined screws. Okay, after you have your saw guide built, your aluminum's down, your screws are nice and tight, it's time to make that first cut. When you do your initial cut, you're gonna see just how fantastic your saw guide really is. When you do that first cut, I dare you to look down there and not tell me it's straight. It's gonna be a perfect cut, a straight cut. You're gonna look like a pro, and you can make panel saw level cuts right in your driveway. You can get our standard kit, which gives you an 8-foot long saw guide. And act now, and we can add an additional saw guide for your cross-cut sled, and you can have a cross-cut sled, a long 8-foot sled. You can have everything you need to make nice, precise cuts.
Bonus content!
It's money, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because if you were to measure plywood out to this line, you don't have to worry about subtracting or adding anything.
No, you draw your line right where you want it.
Right here.
And it protects your sheet goods. So you know veneer.
Yeah.
Veneer is expensive. You do not want to run a saw on top of finished wood. You got to tape it all off. Boom, this goes right on top. Okay, you got nothing. I mean, heck, if you wanted to, you could put rubber on the bottom of this. You know? But this is your sacrificial piece. You know? It's not going to bend your aluminum by throwing it on the job site. You're ready to make a perfect cut every time. When you wear out that sacrificial wood, you're ready, man. And what I don't like about the 8-footer is when I go like this across the table, I got 4 feet running out, man. Mm-hmm. You know, so now set it and forget it. If you're on site, cutting, like sometimes you have a bullnose on countertops on site, you come screw this to your countertop, cut the bullnose right off. Now you got perfect factory cut.
Ooh, cutting OSB, I think, though, off a stack right now for new homes is so critical when you have to have that 1/8 inch gap. All the lines have to be perfect, and you usually have your low man on a totem pole that's out there cutting off that stack. Now prices of plywood are close to $30 a sheet.
You can't have mistakes.
10 sheets is $300. 100 sheets is $3,000. So you start looking over in the scrap pile and seeing these big pieces of plywood because the guy made bad cuts. This would take the air out of it.
It's so so what we did, bro, you see the kerf that we cut? So I'll show you. I'll show you.
That holds that thing dead on.
So you just start with your factory edge. You cut a 9-inch board. This is my factory side. This is just hand cut. Mm-hmm. Take this to your saw. Run a kerf on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Copy.
Snap the aluminum into it, and then you put it down, screw it in, and then run your saw through it.
And that gets you your straight. That's that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beefy.
It's not cheap aluminum.
You
like
can pick your plywood.
That
too,
ain't
whatever
moving
you
either,
want.
dude.
run this on there, dude. Like here, let me drop it a little bit for you just so you get the real feel for it. Push that, dude. Right?
Yeah, that's nice.
You could stop and walk around.
You could stop and you're still in the game.
Yeah.
However you want.
Because usually when you stop and then you start again, you kick.
Oh yeah. Anytime you're here.
And you just clamp it.
Yeah, you clamp it on this 2-inch piece.
I always call
And feel how light that is.
when you look at someone's piece that's all.
Yeah, that's legendary.
Do it yourself, save thousands, and I'll see you on the next tool.